Good afternoon. Welcome into Market Talk for Monday, December 21st, 2020. I'm your host, Jesse Allen. Great to have you here with us. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Hard to believe we are only just a couple of days away from Christmas here in 2020, a year that has been quite different for all of us, for lack of a better term. But happy to be here with you and talking markets today here on Market Talk. MarketTalkAg.com. That's where you could find us, our home on the web, MarketTalkAg.com. And bringing in today our guest, what a difference a week makes. Last week we were talking about possibilities and looking at different trends and looking ahead to the end of the year. And since then, man, we've seen some changes in this marketplace. Let's bring in our good friend, senior market advisor with Total Farm Marketing by Stewart-Peterson. Bryan Doherty is joining us today. Bryan, as I mentioned, first off, good afternoon. Good to see you. What a difference a week makes, Bryan.
Oh boy, yeah! What a week! What a Monday so far. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of stuff we can kind of touch on, but really a lot of it's the same. You've got weather in South America. You've got a port strike in South America. You've got strong technical buying. You've got a lack of farmers holding soybeans in the U.S. and in Brazil. They've already sold, by some accounts, 57, 60, maybe 65% of their expected production. The farmer has, and why wouldn't he? Got good prices and. So you got some big movement today, in particular, new contract highs established in corn and soybeans.
Yeah, and let's start there, and let's start. I want to start on the corn side first. Soybeans were the bigger story, I think, but let's talk corn a little bit here. I know a lot more producers are holding on to some corn right now. New contract highs. We touched 440 overnight. We came back and closed right at 440 today on that March contract, and looking at some of these deferred months, some good numbers there. Talk about this corn market, Bryan. Was it spillover support from soybeans, or is it an entirely different story in corn?
No, primarily spillover support from soybeans. In fact, you might even argue if corn finished 2.5 higher March, 2 3/4 higher in May, December up a penny and a half. Beans, on the other hand, 21 to 23 cents higher in this old crop. So really not a lot of pull there. What was encouraging though is earlier in the session, prices were up in the overnight, and then the U.S. dollar began a pretty sharp rally, and then that seemed to flip back over, and the traders came right back in and bought corn and soybeans. But the corn market, you've got a few dynamics there. One, a little bit different than soybeans. You've got what I would term, or what we think we would term, probably an adequate carryout at 1.7 billion. There will be some adjustments in January. That'll be the last yield adjustment. So you've got that. That's acting as an anchor, and we continue to believe that farmers, they went through harvest quickly, got beans off the field, stuffed corn in the bin. We think more of that corn will come out into the new year. There's tax reasons for that, and it's just time to move it. With that being said, there's some room for this corn market to move upward, with beans now reaching their highest level since 2013.
And I look at this corn market, and closing a new contract high today. I think with basis still remaining, a little sideways, but still okay. I think a lot of producers have, they're taking a look at this, wondering, man, maybe I should lock in a little bit of a floor on my corn now. I've been talking a lot about soybeans. We've been looking at the soybean market quite a bit with what was left out there, but man, now some good price opportunity here in corn, it looks like, Bryan.
Yeah, there's some good pricing opportunities. If you've been just on the sidelines, don't let this slip. The last several years we've got to about this level, and then we just run out of gas, and that's feasible this year. Right now, it seems like we have some different momentum, in particular in the soybean market, pulling prices higher. But I think you want to make incremental sales. You want to make sure and keep your pay raise, reward the rally, those type of things. If you want to be a little bit more progressive or strong, I would have you think about if you need a cash flow and you want to reduce risk, sell the cash, buy call options to retain ownership, or some kind of strategy that gets you into the marketplace.
Well, Bryan, let's talk soybeans. Let's shift gears here. And you mentioned contract highs there as well. 12.43 1/4 in that January front month. A couple cents above that old contract high now. And, we had that listed as resistance and kind of just shook it off and went a couple cents above it today. I mean, beans,
Yeah,
Wow, what a story here,
it
Brian.
is a story. You've got just a real dynamic market this year. You've got this absolute robust demand. We had strong export inspections again
Mhm,
today. So when you get a Monday with that kind of support, it doesn't hurt. But the big weekend probably, or the big weather news over the weekend, was lack of heavy rains in Argentina, areas that'll remain dry. Basically, warmer in the forecast is what it looks like there. The soybean export inspection number, just really impressive when you look at kind of the grand total year to date. I just want to put this in perspective. So today, 93 million bushels. Year to date, 1.274. The USDA is expecting 2.2. So well over 50%. It's like 59% of what the expected sales are for the year have already been shipped out by, well, the third week in December now. So we've got one
mhm.
more week to go in December here. So really impressive. But you got weather is your big thing. The dollar tipped back over. You've just had this robust demand market. Also like in August, it just clicked on since August. So a lot of good things happening there. No topping signals yet.
Yeah, and I think on the product side as well in soy, I know bean oil was down slightly today, but bean meal, another robust day there as well. And it just seems like all the good factors are kind of coming into this market right now at the right time. And Brian, we talked forever about $12 soybeans and breaking through that barrier. And I think now after a good day today, a lot of producers are starting to wonder, is 13 out of the question? And as you mentioned, no topic signals yet, but I wonder, do we need to pump the brakes on $13 soybeans here a little bit?
Well, the market will decide whether it wants to pump the brakes on it. But
Mhm.
I know the content of the question. There's a couple of things here. The November soybean contract, if we divide the price of December corn into to beans, that's 2.60. That's
Mhm.
telling farmers we want you to plant beans.
Yeah.
Typically 2.5 does it, and usually about 2.4, 2.45. So that's the story there today. You've got you got kind of just a wild card with this uncertainty. We've such a strong export pace, and then on top of that, some weather elements in South America, and on top of that, good financial backing, good fund money pouring into these markets.
Mhm.
You're in the acceleration phase right now. What does that mean? That just means it takes a while for beans to get 8 to 9, then 9 to 10's a little quicker, and then 10 to 11's even faster. 11 to 12 is fast. Now it's starting to really pick up the pace, and I think that's a function of those who've been buying are making money, so it's easy to reinvest. Let's call it house money in the futures.
Mhm.
Jesse, the other thing is I just don't see a lot of farmers that have a lot of inventory to sort of squash this thing right now. So let it run.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned some of the funds getting back in. I think what was it, around 10,000 contracts of soybeans today, something along that number. So I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting couple of days, and I wonder too, Brian, and maybe I get your thoughts on this. Obviously, we're in a holiday shortened week. Um, it's gonna. I'd be curious to see how the market does tomorrow, Wednesday, and on into Christmas Eve with the early close. I think that could be a telltale sign for what we could see moving into next week, another holiday shortened week, and then into the first part of January.
Yeah, the next 10 days or so are going to be interesting because you've got a weather market. You've
Hmm.
got what could conceivably be, and I think that's where you're headed, kind of this
Yeah.
light light traffic, and that can make for really volatile markets too. You get a couple of
Hmm.
big orders come in there, have to find buys or sells. So so it's easy to be friendly right now. There's good reason to maybe think to be friendly. Um, Yet for those who have been patiently holding on to beans, either step up and start selling some just to keep your pay raise, or keep a trigger point underneath the market. This is the point where you want to let this thing run. And if you're patient with a trigger point under the market by, let's say, 50 cents or some critical technical point, that that kind of takes the guesswork out of it for you. If the market tips over and goes through these points, it's telling you probably to sell. So that's probably how I'd approach the soybean market right now, trying to leave as much space as we can to the top side.
Let's talk wheat here briefly, and wheat futures a decent day there today, and we continue more, new strain possibly of coronavirus in the UK. I mean, we're hearing some concerns about that. We've been following the weather market and wheat, Russia. We've a lot of storylines in wheat as well, and world wheat side of things, and then here domestically in the US. But decent day today in wheat. Any thoughts on this market right now?
Consolidation. It's been higher, it's been lower. There's ample world supply. The COVID is an interesting argument. We've seen that before when things start to get a little iffy. Kind of the prospect of, hey, we're going to hold this wheat back in country. We want to make sure we have enough for food security. Yeah, with this vaccine out there, you kind of lean the idea that the world's going to have ample wheat supplies. Yet the Western plains remain dry.
Mhm.
We've got these pesky dry conditions worldwide. Expect lots of jumpiness. I just don't think that this market is poised to be a leader right now. The leader is
Yeah.
definitely soybeans, and then on certain days followed by corn, but definitely the soybean complex.
Yeah.
And on that note, meal
Mhm.
in particular. So Argentina's got a port strike. They're the largest exporter of meal to the world. Well, you can't ship any meal out when you got 100 ships waiting to do something,
Mhm.
and that's supportive to U.S. meal. We saw that in the market today.
Yeah, very, very supportive for sure. Let's talk livestock here a little bit as we get into a Monday. And I know Friday we had that cattle on feed report. Looking at this market today, pretty ho hum, pretty quiet in cattle and hogs. Really wasn't a lot of movement. Maybe give us some of your thoughts on Friday's cattle on feed report and how that's played into the cattle side of the equation.
Well, the report was pretty much right as expected. So there weren't any surprises on the report, and the way the market opened today. I know there's a weekend in between there, but my goodness, that was a yawner. So
Hmm.
what the report did say again is you got tighter numbers of feeder cattle going in on feedlots. So as we look down the road, there's two dynamics there. One, smaller numbers going in right now. Two, when I say down the road, I'm talking that April to June window.
Hmm.
Um, Two, you've had just we talked about this last week, really good weather for cattle producers, really good weight gain. So these calves are coming in the lot, they're gaining well, and they're going out the lot pretty fast. And so I think what the cattle on feed report indicated to our interpretation is, look, it was as expected, but that's got a friendly undertone, and the deferred futures have it right. They're anticipating higher cash prices.
And I know, we didn't see much on the cash side today. Obviously, a typical Monday there, but with the holiday shortened week, I wonder will we see some heavy activity tomorrow, Wednesday? I would think that Packers and whatnot, they probably want to get done a little early for Christmas. You would think, like normal, but I'm curious as well with this cattle market, Brian. I think I share your sentiment there. Looking at some higher prices, and I think that we might have the ability to put a little bit in here. I'm not gonna. I don't know if we could put a lot in, but I think we could put a little bit into this cattle market.
I think the argument against a lot and maybe I'm even a little too optimistic is perhaps just the unknown with this COVID and
Mhm.
Christmas and the amount of things you're hearing day to day on shutdowns and down
Yeah.
eat out and this and that and the other thing. Well, okay. Um, yeah, so that's the dampers. We don't have that
Mhm.
robust, strong retail or the strong restaurant business right now.
Sure.
It just isn't there. It'll come back at some point, but it is not there now.
Let's talk hogs, Brian. On the hog side of the equation today, kind of a yawner as well. Was pretty quiet. We're slightly higher. I noticed that pork cutout value today. That was up quite a bit, up almost 651 last I looked. Pushing that thing almost to $78 on that cutout value. When you're looking at this hog market heading to Christmas here, end of this week, anything new, anything exciting or not exciting that you're seeing in this hog market?
Ample daily slaughters. That's not exciting nor new.
Yeah.
We see general consolidation. Summer months look okay.
Mhm.
I see. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, you're good.
when we look at the contracts, you talked about that pork cutout. So that's a new contract trading on the exchange.
Mhm.
volume is light. I wouldn't move into that, but it's had a lot of volatility in the last month, down to around 72 to up to around 79. So that's interesting. It's an interesting thing. We'll see if that stays. The market itself, summer months in particular, around the 81, 82. Gosh, I'm just scared for the cattle or for the hog industry that we'll have good demand, but boy, we're really ramping up the overall world production primarily out of China. That's your big problem there. So I would treat each rally at this point as an opportunity to think about selling ahead. I don't see a washout coming, but I don't necessarily see a big bull market coming either.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a sentiment I've heard from a lot of folks, and I think if you're a hog producer, and there's not tons of independent hog producers out there these days. There's still quite a few, but those guys and gals definitely. It sounds like more of a watch the rally side of the equation here in hogs.
Yeah, watch the rally. Make sure to be a seller there. This hog market got crushed so hard in April, and then it rallied back, and then again got crushed, and then it's rallied back now. So it's doing okay, but you got to wonder if that didn't take its toll. So maybe the dark horse here is that the supply of hogs will actually lighten into the first quarter. I'm not arguing for that, but that could happen.
Yeah.
I talked to a large producer today, and they just got beat up kind of hard here this year. It's been so volatile, and getting the cash market down to where it was in April, and then it jumped up a little, then back down again in June. Just a pretty tough environment to try to be a hog producer.
Yeah, very, very true. Well, it's been a tough year for everyone in agriculture and around the world, as we know, and we're hoping for better days ahead. Brian, we covered quite a bit today. It's an exciting Monday for a lot of different commodities. Any other final thoughts you have for us today?
Just do one Merry Christmas to your listeners and watchers, and just be safe. That'd be number one. The other market we didn't touch on, but there really wasn't a lot of movement, was the dairy market. There again, I think you got to look at any kind of a rally. When I say a rally, if we get 50 cents or $1, watch that really closely. It's probably not going to last. So let it rally and then try and take advantage of that. Other than that, just like I said, safe holidays, and just lie low.
Yeah, I need to put a sticky note in front of me that says when I talk to Brian on Monday, make sure I talk dairy at the end before we run out of time. It's one of those things. I'll be better about that as we move into the new year.
Well, it's definitely intertwined to the other markets, but then again, it's kind of its own separate entity, and
well, I don't want to leave out our dairy producers either, and
right.
I mean to talk about it, and then we get talking about other things and all this excitement and soybeans and corn, and then we run out of time.
Correct.
But no, as always, I appreciate it, Brian. I wish you and yours a Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday, and I know we will talk again soon. So thank you so much for the time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jesse, and happy holidays to you.
Bryan Doherty, Senior Market Advisor with Total Farm Marketing by Stewart-Peterson, our guest today here on Market Talk. Find us, markettalkag.com. It's been the Monday, December 21st edition of Market Talk. I'm your host, Jesse Allen. Have a great afternoon.